YNW Melly has now spent nearly 7 years behind bars as he continues to wait for another trial in his Florida murder case. And at this stage, he is making a serious push to be released on bond while that legal process continues to unfold. The 26-year-old rapper, whose legal name is Jamel Demons, has reached a point where remaining in custody under the same conditions is being challenged through formal legal action. According to court documents obtained by TMZ, Melly, through his attorney Drew Findling, has officially requested a release from custody pending trial. This move represents not just a legal strategy, but also a reflection of the growing concerns about the length of time he has already spent incarcerated without a final resolution to his case. The request is built on the argument that the circumstances surrounding his detention have become increasingly severe, and that continuing to hold him in such conditions is no longer justified given the prolonged delay in his trial. The documents submitted by his legal team go into extensive detail about the conditions Melly has been living under while being held at Broward County Jail, describing them as deeply troubling and, in their words, dehumanizing. These conditions are not presented as minor inconveniences or standard aspects of incarceration, but rather as extreme circumstances that have had a significant and ongoing impact on his well-being. The filing paints a picture of a man who has been subjected to a level of isolation and restriction that goes beyond what is typically expected, especially for such an extended period of time. The emphasis throughout the documents is on how these conditions have affected him not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well, raising concerns about the long-term consequences of remaining in such an environment. One of the most critical aspects highlighted in the filing is Melly's placement in solitary confinement, which reportedly began back in December 2021. Since that time, he has been held under what is described as a 23-1 schedule, a term used to explain a form of confinement where an individual is locked alone inside a small cell for 23 hours each day. The remaining 1 hour is the only time he is allowed outside of that confined space. However, even during that limited period, the documents claim that he is not permitted to interact with other detainees, meaning that the isolation is not just about physical confinement, but also about a complete lack of human connection. This level of separation, especially when extended over years rather than days or weeks, is described as one of the most severe aspects of his current situation. The motion explains that this type of confinement has effectively cut Melly off from any meaningful social interaction, leaving him alone for the vast majority of each day, with no opportunity to engage with others. Over time, such conditions can become increasingly difficult to endure, as the absence of normal human contact begins to take a toll on a person's mental state. The filing suggests that this is exactly what has happened in Melly's case, arguing that the prolonged nature of his isolation has amplified its effects. Rather than being a temporary measure, his time in solitary confinement has stretched on for years, turning what might have been manageable in the short term into something far more damaging over the long term. In addition to the isolation within the jail itself, the documents also address the restrictions placed on Melly's ability to communicate with the outside world. According to the filing, he has not been able to talk to or accept visits from family members or friends for approximately 4 years. This claim is tied to the alleged revocation of his visitation and phone privileges in 2022, which, according to his legal team, has left him almost completely cut off from those closest to him. The absence of these connections is presented as another significant factor contributing to the overall strain he has experienced during his time in custody. For many individuals, maintaining contact with loved ones serves as an important source of emotional support, especially during difficult circumstances, and the loss of that support can make an already challenging situation even more difficult to handle.